Okay, well, let us begin. My name is Elena Son, as I introduced myself just a few minutes ago. Again, thank you so much for being with us today. We are delighted to welcome the ADB team here, led by Ambassador Wong. And before we begin, let me just introduce Ambassador Wong, and then we will proceed with the ADB experts. Ambassador Wong is the United States Executive Director at the Asian Development Bank. And before her appointment, she was the Senior Vice President at Amida Technology Solutions. She was appointed by President Obama to serve as Vice President for Administration and Finance and Chief Financial Officer at the Millennium Challenge Corporation. Prior to MCC, she was the Budget Director of the National Aeronautics and Space Administration. She has also held leadership positions at the Office of Management and Budget, Departments of Treasury and Interior, and the Environmental Protection Agency. She joined ADB in 1999 as Environment Specialist and was subsequently appointed by President Bill Clinton as U.S. Alternate Director. She holds a Master in Public Administration from the Kennedy School of Government at Harvard. She has another Master in Environmental Engineering from the University of California, Berkeley, with a focus on water and wastewater management. She earned her undergraduate degree in Civil and Structural Engineering from the University of Hawaii. What an impressive bio, Madam Ambassador. It's a delight to see you here and to welcome you. And thank you so much for all your support and for holding the US flag so high at the Asian Development Bank. As a business group that represents American companies active in Central Asia and beyond, of course, we're delighted of such a specific interest in our companies and also providing our companies with the opportunity to be an active part of the Asian Development Bank. So without further ado, Ambassador Wong, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Elena. Certainly welcome to our very first virtual Asian Business Development Business Opportunity Seminar for the U.S. In 2022. As Elena said, I am Ambassador Chantel Wong and the U.S. Executive Director on the ADB Board of Directors. I'm excited today to join you all to learn about ADB's significant work across Central Asia. I don't want to, as mentioned, I don't want to start off by thanking Ms. Elena Song, her team, and the American Uzbekistan Chamber of Commerce, the American Kyrgyzstan Business Council, the U.S. Tajikistan Business Council, and the U.S. Afghanistan Business Initiative, who are sponsoring today's event. Elena has asked me not to spend too much time on her bio, as she has so graciously on mine. I just want to thank her for hosting this webinar and the support of her organizations in helping to promote ADB's opportunities. Today, as mentioned, we have several ADB experts here who will provide details on those current and future opportunities in energy, transport, health across Asia Pacific. And more importantly, how ADB continues to evolve its procurement policies to address challenges that companies must contend with working with in this unique environment. And I want to emphasize too that we're also very much interested in the not just low cost but quality in the procurement. Our presenters will accompany their presentation with a few slides from which they will share while they speak. We will include links in those presentations along with surveys that we will send out after the event. I hope you'll take the time to review the presentations and fill out the survey so that AB can continue, and we as U.S. Representatives to help continue to improve these virtual events, and in hopes that we will even have in-person ones in the future. It is important to emphasize how important the Asian Development Bank is for the region. I learned it certainly 20-some years ago when I joined the bank, and even so today. On average, the ADB invests over $30 billion annually, and the funding often serves as the catalyst for many bilateral and multilateral funding, like the World Bank, but also actually it leverages private sector investments into the region. So today, the multilateral development banks, known as the MDBs, are a growing source of development finance, nearly $2 trillion in assets. While impressive, these multilateral institutions are fully aware that these resources cannot meet the complete needs of the developing countries that they support. So it's very important for private sector to be partners with us on this. For the U.S. companies, this translates to many valuable contract opportunities and a way to partner with other donor countries to address the priorities of the developing member governments. Let me step back there and say that I'm using terms like developing country, member countries, and donor countries, members, governments. ADB is a really very much a living and evolving member organization. As I mentioned, I was there 20 years ago. It's very much a different organization that I see today as I joined the board more recently. So currently there are about 68 member countries making up the ADB Board of Governors, which I represent the U.S. interests. All of the 68 members donate finances, which ADB can then lend forward. For ADB, only companies and individuals from these member countries can bid on ADB's what we call sovereign lending, which is really government lending projects. There is also a private sector arm to ADB. Around 45 of the 68 member countries are in the developing category and receive sovereign and other financial support directly from ADB. ADB's lending region is massive. It really is covering the Central Asia republics to the Pacific Islands. And then other sub-regional hubs are benefiting from ADB's finance. So in particular, we're very interested in ADB's lending into the Central Asia republics. And I see that it will continue to grow in funding to this region. I will stop there since our presenters will provide more information and more detail into that. And so I'll leave it at that. While ADB values all its member economies, I did want to emphasize that both ADB's projects offer special benefits for U.S. firms and how U.S. firms working in these bank projects can help ADB. I've heard it identified in so many internal meetings the special value of U.S. firms that brings to bank projects, both not only financial but also really skills and expertise. The donor countries demand significant safeguards and ethical standards that may not be common in some in some of the developing countries if you go directly there. And having U.S. firms working with projects executing agencies provide a ready expertise in the ethical demands that ADB works so hard to teach. And then for U.S. firms, ADB's sovereign lending, again to governments, offer a much secure, visible environment for the U.S. firms to develop their regional expertise. Projects benefiting from ADB lending receive additional visibility and scrutiny, which help protect against older, less ethical business practices. And ADB has a vested interest in the long-term results of all their projects and maintain constant communications with the member economies to keep these projects on track and unfeathered by such practices. This ensures an added level of security and reliability, similar to what U.S. firms count on, such as working with, example, USAID or MCC or any other U.S.-funded bilateral efforts. In 2021, approximately $16 billion worth of ADB contracts was awarded to all eligible consultants as well as suppliers of goods and works. Of this amount, U.S. received $433 million, making U.S. the sixth in overall procurement ranking. As the world returns to a new normal with the hopefully with the receding pandemic, I want you to rest assured that the U.S. government will continue to push U.S. strategic interests across the Asian Pacific region, particularly Indo-Pacific, by increasing the number of small and medium-sized exporters of goods and services involved in ADB's work. ADB, together with USAID and other sponsors, will host the annual, for example, will host the annual Asia Clean Energy Forum in June of 2022. So be on the lookout for that. And I know that my team and my effort also to work with U.S. bilateral agencies like USTDA that will help you, particularly help U.S. companies to get to bankable projects. For example, they provide technical assistance, and we just signed an MOU with USTDA to help facilitate that effort. So in conclusion, I want to take a moment to introduce some of my team who are here in Manila to support U.S. firms in accessing ADB opportunities. In my office, I have a alternate U.S. executive director. His name is John Hurley, and I have two expert advisors, Jacob Henderson and Colin Hurt. These names and emails we will be providing to you all in further down. We also have our commerce colleagues who directly support U.S. firms seeking to work with the bank. Commerce Liaison Office also serves as an informal advisor to U.S. Treasury team at the bank. Joining the call, I believe Mark O'Grady, who is the U.S. Commercial Liaison from the Commerce Department. He's working currently from D.C. and where he works with his colleague, Mr. Michael Mia, who is based in Manila. Mark provides over 30 years of experience working with U.S. firms seeking international opportunities. And Michael himself has close to 15 years of experience working directly in the Commercial Liaison Office located in the U.S. Embassy in Manila. So Mark and Michael will be on the call, the entire call with you all, and will be available in the end to answer audience questions in case I have to step away. Now, while I'll ask Elena to introduce all our expert panels from ADB, I just want to mention we're very, very lucky to have Mr. Rustam Adukayumov, who is Director of Procurement Division 2, which includes Central Asia operations at ADB. He will help us understand some of the challenges ADB faces in supporting the region and how ADB is evolving to resolve them. Rustam himself hails from Central Asia, and I'm looking forward to meeting you, Rustam, when I come back to Manila. But he brings a particular unique perspective to many of the efforts that ADB has in that region. So with that, Elena, I'm going to turn it over to you to introduce Rustam and the rest of the panel of ADB experts and go on with the rest of our presentation. So thank you.
Sure. Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Ambassador Wong, for your time and for being with us today. It's a delight to have your support and also support of Mark O'Grady and Michael Meir. And I'm specifically highlighting these two individuals because they started working with us some time ago, years ago, actually. And Mark has always submitted ADB procurement opportunities to our chamber. So we were delighted when they reached out and they said, well, it's time to do a procurement webinar with us. We certainly took them up on this offer, and here we are today. But once again, thank you so much for being with us. And we know you have very important engagements, and we look forward to hosting you again at other events.
By the way, Central Asia Republic is on my list of on my to-go list, so I'm looking forward to really coming out to the region and spending some time understanding all the challenges that the bank faces and all the opportunities there are. So I'm really looking forward to spending some time there. Thank you.
Sure. Well, thank you so much again, Madam Ambassador. Well, continuing on the presentation, and I would like to take the opportunity and introduce Rustam Abdukayumov, who is actually, as Ambassador Wong indicated, is from Uzbekistan, and Rustam is the Director of Procurement Division 2 of Procurement Portfolio and Financial Management Department at the Asian Development Bank, where he oversees procurement and consulting services operations in East Asia, Southeast Asia, and Pacific countries. And Rustam has been with ADB for 21 years. He joined ADB in 2001 as a portfolio management officer in ADB's Uzbekistan resident mission, and later moved to become a procurement specialist in the Procurement Portfolio and Financial Management Department. His experience in ADB includes working on large and complex turnkey civil work and supply contracts in irrigation, transport, urban, and energy sectors, carrying out country, sector, and project procurement risk assessments, procurement capacity assessment of executing agencies. He served as secretary to ADB's procurement committee, responsible for oversight of high-value procurement transactions across all ADB developing member countries, and as head of procurement support unit, providing data and analysis on procurement transactions for the Procurement Portfolio and Financial Management Department. Rustam is a national of Uzbekistan. He obtained his master's degree in Oriental Studies in 1989 from Tashkent State University. Well, welcome, Rustam. Rustam, what an impressive bio, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you so much, Elena, and good morning to all our colleagues in the United States, and good day to our colleagues in Central Asia and other parts of the globe. It's really my pleasure to welcome you all to this virtual business opportunities seminar. And of course, I would like to thank our host organization, American Uzbekistan Chamber of Commerce, for helping us in organizing this event. And I would also like to extend my thanks to Ambassador Wong, U.S. Executive Director at ADB's Board of Directors, for your very kind support to this event and also for your opening remarks. As you probably know, it's the third year as ADB is conducting business opportunities seminars virtually. Those of you who have a prior experience working with ADB, perhaps you remember that we used to have so-called business opportunities fairs in Manila. Every year we had this big event which provided a very good opportunity for networking with ADB staff and learning about business opportunities with ADB. The last business opportunities fair we conducted in 2019 was attended by more than 1,000 participants. And there were quite many participants from the USA. Unfortunately, starting from 2020, due to COVID, we could not host in-person events, but we successfully moved to organizing this BOS in virtual format as we have today. And we see quite increasing interest from the business community to attend such seminars. In 2020, we conducted 34 events. Last year, we conducted 54 events. And these cover many different countries, many different constituencies. And as I said, we see very kind of big interest, and we will continue that. Probably, of course, in today's seminar, there are representatives from consulting industry, but also maybe manufacturers of goods and contractors. And you will be interested to learn about the opportunities within under ADB projects. For contractors, of course, there are plenty of opportunities, and it's even very difficult to estimate how much funding is available for that, because ADB portfolio is very big. The active portfolio as of today is about $100 billion US. It's the value of all ongoing projects which are supported by loans under government guarantees. In addition to that, there are about $14 billion US portfolio of the private sector operations who provide loans without government guarantees to private sector clients. But of course, most of the interest is from the consulting industry, and I just wanted to share a few figures. Last year, ADB provided about $200 million for consulting services that ADB administers itself. It means ADB does recruitment of consultants and manages these contracts. And we finance about 3,000 contracts with individual consultants and more than 250 contracts with firm on an annual basis. But this is not the only opportunities we have. In addition to that, there are many consulting opportunities under loans and grants, which are managed by the borrowers. And last year, according to our statistics, under loans and grants, about $700 million were spent on consulting services. And since the AD portfolio is growing, we have more and more complex projects. And there is increasing need from the borrowers for good civil work contractors and consulting services. All the opportunities are advertised on ADB website. And what we observed is that large contractors, big engineering firms, they often have offices in many countries and monitor very closely about those opportunities. But in the consulting industry, probably not all firms can afford having offices in multiple countries. And therefore, we are always ready to organize such seminars and share our experience and share opportunities which are available under ADB projects. So today's event will focus on ADB's operations in the energy, transport, and health sector, and we will also cover our procurement. Energy and transport are traditionally the largest sectors in ADB portfolio. And these two sectors have many subsectors, such as in transport, we have roads, railways, seaports, airports, and in energy, we have power generation, transmission, distribution, renewable energy, small grids, smart metering, and so on. So it means there are so many opportunities, and there are specific expertise required in all these subsectors, and it's for the companies to decide where you have your competitive advantage. But also lately, we observe increased interest from borrowers to invest in the health sector, partly because of the COVID, but partly also because many borrowers have developed their own programs for improving resilience of national health systems, and also are trying to invest more in the healthcare infrastructure. During last 2 years, ADB's operations in many sectors were affected by the pandemic, mostly because of the travel restrictions. Consultants and contractors could not work in the field, and many large contracts were put on hold. Also, many tenders were suspended because government agencies also could not do their work on time. But last year and this year, we see quite a good progress and improvements in many countries, and contractors and consultants are allowed to work in the field, but of course they have to follow certain health and safety measures which are prescribed by governments. So I think we are coming very soon, we'll be coming to a normal situation where we will be providing more and more support in person. And I'm also looking forward to organizing these events in person, whether in Manila or elsewhere, so that we could directly talk to our participants. Yeah, one thing I wanted also to share with you is that because of more and more complex projects are being prepared, there is increased focus on EPC contracts, or so-called the turnkey contracts, where contractors should have experience in design and construction of large facilities. Also, we see more contracts, large contracts, where there is operation and maintenance services. Most commonly, these are used in water sector, like water treatment and wastewater treatment plants. So this is expertise we are looking for more and more often. And also, in terms of consulting, we not only look for consulting firms who are traditionally engaged in the project preparation and implementation, but we are also looking for more technical expertise, such as companies who can prepare detailed engineering design, who can conduct specific field surveys, who can do computer modeling, who can help with procurement, and also act as a construction supervision engineers. Of course, we welcome new technical solutions, innovations, because that will help everyone, our borrowers and ADB, to implement projects with the better quality. So I hope some of you, if you have such experience, you will be able to share with us, either offline by email, but we welcome any new ideas in terms of project design and implementation. So as was already said, our ADB colleagues will share with you ADB's policies and pipeline of projects in the energy, transport, and the health sector. We will also cover our procurement framework, rules and procedures, and also share some tips on how to find business opportunities, how to prepare your tenders. And I hope you will find today's event useful for you. Personally, you will learn more how ADB operates and where to find opportunities, but ultimately, I hope all of you will get a chance to win contracts under ADB finance projects. So I will stop here and will hand over back to Elena. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Rustam, for the overview and for highlighting the sectors as well as the experts who are about to speak at this seminar. And of course, a very impressive portfolio, and we look forward to more inquiries from American companies on how to engage and on how to engage not only in projects, but also with your staff to explore further opportunities in health, energy, and transportation. So again, let me move on, and to all our participants and attendees, I'd like to say that this event wouldn't be possible without strong support of people who work behind the scenes. And I would like just to single out one, Marie-Charmaine Simbulan-Yusson, who is also known as Apple, for actually providing us with all the bias, for putting all the presentations together, and for her smooth coordination. So thank you so much, Apple, for your help. I'd like to invite our next speaker, Dr. Ki-Yoon Nam, and Dr. Ki-Yoon Nam is the principal energy economist, sustainable development for sustainable development and climate change department at the Asian Development Bank, where he conceptualizes development of the energy sector strategies and policies and advises in the formulation of the energy sector lending and non-lending pipeline of projects. He is also responsible for the energy sector trust funds and undertakes analysis and assessment of key energy sector issues, particularly in clean energy technologies. Prior to joining SDCC, he was principal economist, economic research, and regional cooperation department, where he provided contributions in analytical research and technical advice on multiple disciplines, including power sector development and reforms, renewable energy, fossil fuel subsidy, transport, impact evaluation, country diagnostic studies, and issues related to economic analysis on investment projects, particularly on energy, infrastructure, and environment sectors. Prior to joining ADB, Dr. Ki-Yoon Nam worked in the International Atomic Energy Agency, International Institute for Applied System Analysis, and the United Nations for Industrial Development. Again, excellent bio, very impressive. And I think we have the best experts to talk to us today about the opportunities. So Dr. Nam, the floor is yours. And I know that I have to share your presentation. Just give me a second. Yes, please go ahead.
Thank you, Elena. Thank you, Elena. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, where you are now. So, this is my, pleasure to have this opportunity to present here today for the, energy sector operations or investment in the ADB, with a special focus on the clean energy development. So can we move to the next slide, please? So I'll just go straight to the presentation. Right. So in the, I'll start with just a general, kind of background that, where the energy sector, energy investment is playing the role here, is that key energy challenges in Asia and the Pacific, the region. One is that we look at from the energy access, still that, we still have around 160 million without electricity access in the region. But, we were looking at mostly closely on the electricity access, but, these days that is coming with the cooling, heating, in particular for the cooking. Then we see that, it's about 10 times more than the electricity access. So we have something like 1.7 billion people without access to the clean cooking. And one side, apart from the energy access, still we have this energy security challenges here. So when you see that, we are expecting the region will, by year 2040, electricity demand will be, doubled. And it will require about 1.3 trillion annually by, till 2030. And of course, for the current annual transmission and distribution investment, we expect about $1 trillion. Obviously, that this cannot be all covered by the ADB, but the region has this. And then also the environmental sustainability is another key energy challenges here. In particular, for the region, this is vulnerable to the climate change, where it contributes to 50% of the global greenhouse gas emissions. And then this is because of the mostly it's the fossil-based, fossil dominant in the region. And then something like 40% of the CO2 emission is coming from the coal power plant. So still coal power generation is also, major portion of the, our fossil-based power generation. And on the other side, there is a sector governance challenges here. We still have the outdated or regressive sector regulations and governance, still subsidies and financial incentives to be reconsidered. And also, it should play the private sector participation is needed to meet this massive investment requirements. So next slide, please. Yeah, so we see this challenge as a one to the opportunity and changing the energy landscape. So energy landscape over the past couple of decades, that we see that in the region, fast falling cost of renewable energy against the conventional energy, and then also emerging new innovative or advanced low carbon energy technologies, and then also we have this maturing digital and smart technologies as well. And pretty much of the renewable energy, we see that there is the kind of a mature market for is the existing here in the region. And of course, there is the kind of opportunity is that global commitments to universal access and climate action in terms of SDG goals, Sustainable Development Goals 7 in particular for the universal energy access by 2030, and also SDG Goal 13 for the climate change. And then of course the Paris Agreement, where the NDCs nationally determine the contributions to this commitment or target to achieve. From the ADB's commitments that we see that here, ADB to be the Asia and the Pacific Climate Ban. This was the kind of one of the speech that our president he has done this speech. So from the 80 billion now, we changed that to the $100 billion of the cumulative climate finance by 2030. And then at least 75% of the operations should be, have this climate challenge on that one till, from 2019 to 2030. That is the kind of, ADB's commitment. Next slide, please. So energy sector operations, we have this typical 3 guiding principles, so to say. So as I mentioned earlier that, on the right-hand side that we have this global commitments to universal access and climate actions, which I mentioned that. And then also we have this Adb Strategy 2030 with the 7 operational priorities. And energy sector will contribute to the all individual 7 operational priorities. But in the guiding principle is the first is increase the deployment of renewable energy and energy efficiency. And then we'll have the integration of advanced technologies, not only the least cost technologies. So what we are seeing is integration of the advanced technologies with innovative business model and financing instruments. And then creating and enabling a regulatory framework for effective market and sector development. These are the 3 guiding principles of how the energy sector is operating. Next slide, please. Yeah, so when we look at the energy sector portfolio from 2011 to 2021 on the annual average basis, so to say, share. So from the ADB, total ADB lending, which Rustam mentioned that energy sector contributes to roughly on average about 20%, it goes up and down though. And then from the total energy sector lending, we have a major portion is on the clean energy side, which is about 50, slightly more 50%. And then the other one is the transmission and distribution. So, T&D will continue for the next few years as well, because of the, penetration of the clean energy or renewable energy. It will still require the different types of the transmission and distribution line, in addition to the supply security of the energy. And then from this clean energy, 50% or slightly more than 50%, then we have this climate mitigation and adaptation financing. Renewable energy contributes about 60%, and energy efficiency about 39-40%, and the fuel switching is very minimum. But until now, between this period from 2011 to 2021, the energy efficiency is mostly on the supply side. But we will be looking at more on the focus on the demand side energy efficiency, in the next few years. Next slide, please. So this is the kind of similar sector portfolio. One on the left-hand side graph shows that this is still, we have only last year we had about only 24% from the private sector investment, while the most is for the sovereign operations. So, and from the lending subsector, this is what we meant. Annually we've been energy sector portfolio was about between on average $4 to $5 billion. But last year, due to this COVID and all things, the energy sector portfolio was below $2 billion, in fact. So that is the word, and we are expecting that it will increase from 2022 over 2023, go back to the about $4 to $5 billion, and we would like to get the private sector investment more than 35% on that one. Next slide, please. So we had last year, the energy policy was approved, and then it has a 5, to support the low carbon transition in the region. So we had a 5 principle here. First is the, securing energy for security for prosperous and inclusive Asia and the Pacific. Second principle is the building a sustainable and resilient energy future. And third principle, supporting institution, private sector participation and good governance. And also principle 4, we are promoting the regional cooperation and integration. And then lastly, the principle 5, we are doing the integrated cross-sector operation to maximize the development impacts from the energy sector point of view. So, this was a little bit. Now the energy sector itself, we're not looking at that, but we are also, the cross-sectoral or multi-sectoral operations is what we'll see in the next few years, at least. And then this is the areas that, we have for the delivery, but, bear in mind that, we are looking at decarbonization and decreasing the energy consumption and conservation, and then using innovative smart technologies or digitalization technology, and then decentralization, so to say. And next slide, please. So these are the couple of Adb's clean energy projects. It's a simple kind of example. So we show different modality that we do, from the financial intermediary loan, or the other climate greenhouse finance facility, and then also private sector loan in through the private sector operation department, and some of this is sovereign project loan for utility scale, also more in the bigger scale of the energy storage, or this type of that. And also we do the grant support for the in particular from the seed countries, small island countries in the Pacific. So these are some most recent examples on that one. So next slide, please. So how we are looking at from the way forward, certainly that, as mentioned, that, we'll increase the clean energy investment, which we do it 2 things: renewable, promotion of the renewable energy, and the other side is the energy efficiency improvement. But, this, we are pretty much until now focused on when we talk about the, renewable, promoting the renewable energy, that we will, we did it, but mostly it was the hydro and solar. But we are not only looking at that, but we go beyond that one. So we are doing the new renewables. So like we're looking at even on and onshore or offshore wind and floating solar and then waste energy, geothermal, so all types of the renewables that we are expecting to have this investment. And of course, the scale and scope economies in energy efficiency. And then, support advanced technologies. We are looking at from our sector group that we are doing some of this feasibility studies on the more advanced technologies. So supporting the deployment of the ICT and digital applications. And also we're looking at energy storage in the transmission distribution subsectors, and that will strengthen multi-sector approach. So we are having pretty much on the energy water nexus or energy urban, energy transport, but we are going beyond. So we have energy education sector and the agricultural sector as well. So we're doing quite a focus on the multi-sector approach. And next slide, please. I think that's it. Yeah, these are just a tentative indicative pipeline that we received from the end of last year, and it is subject to changes, so to say. But these are the kind of a potential indicative clean energy projects that we do have. And in case of that, like in Uzbekistan in particular, that we are running as in terms of the renewables, that we look at the hydro projects, and also we are looking at some of this solars and decentralized or distributed solar system, including the solar rooftop. And these are the things that we do. In terms of the trade among the region, is like a caps that we have this. We supported also the projects with the Kyrgyzstan and Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan on the changing the, so to say, renewable export and imports, so to say, during the summer times, to reduce overall to reduce the reliance on the dependency on the fossil fuel. So we are doing that kind of thing. So these operations as well. And yeah, I think I will stop here then. And I will turn back to Elena in case that any questions that at the end that I'm happy to respond. I'll stop here. Thank you very much. Thank you, Elena.
Sure. Thank you so much, Dr. Nam, for the overview. And I saw that there was a slide on universal energy access by 2030. And I think that's very pertinent to Central Asia, that just recently in January went through a major regional blackout where 3 countries, Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, and Kyrgyzstan, were affected. Do you have any comments? I mean, just to expand a little bit on that particular concept of the universal access by 2030?
Well, we are looking at the electricity access itself is fine, but I think I didn't explicitly mention that one. What we try to do is a 7 by 24 hours energy security. So I know that like Tajikistan, I'm not pointing at one country or something, but heavily rely on the hydro, and then it depends on the climate change as well as that it has those fact when it comes to the cold winter or something, the water level goes down, so the hydro electricity generation, so to say, is limited. So what we try to do is that this kind of things that we can solve that one through the kind of intra trade in terms of electricity, with strengthening the grid among the countries like that. So in winter that you get something from the Uzbekistan to import, and while you have challenges, and then of course during the summertime that when you have, then it will be fully exported from the hydro part. So through this inter-regional or intra-regional trade of this, through the more solid grid system that can also achieve the energy access and more on that one. So of course that one way that is still that you see that in the region that it is more of the I would say this is the centralized grid with a centralized supply power plants. that, it will be distributed, or, I mentioned that, we're looking at more on the, decentralized system with a more promotion of the renewable, and that will also serve the energy security issue. And then also that will lead to the, distributed renewable small scale technologies for the community, like a distributed renewable energy system on the small scale, and with a different business model. And then that can be also have that, have the to, so to say, ease the challenges of the energy access point of view, which is the far from the more on the grid connections. So we are looking at that direction.
Sure. Thank you so much. You also, one of the slides mentioned about promotion and advocacy for stronger regional cooperation. And
Right,
again, when it comes to energy sector, I think it's very important for Central Asia that has resources to multiple sources of renewable energy, right? Be it solar, hydro, and so on. So we really hope for your closer collaboration on Central Asians and working with them individually to meet their market demands, as well as the region.
That's right. We'll do. Thank you.
Thank you so much again. And I would like to invite our next speaker. I would like to invite Bertrand Goalou. And let me just share the impressive bio of Bertrand. Bertrand, hold on a second. Let me just spotlight for you for everyone. And so Bertrand Goalou is leading the sustainable urban transport and railways activities of the transport sector group in the Sustainable Development and Climate Change Department at the Asian Development Bank. He provides advice, expertise, and support to operations departments and assists in the development of transport sector assistance to align with clients' emerging needs and corporate objectives. With more than 20 years of experience in the sector, Bertrand's expertise covers all stages of the project cycle. He joined ADB in 2010 as project team leader and devised sustainable urban transport projects in Central West Asia with a focus on innovative and transformative solutions. He was seconded out to the Agency Française de Développement from 2016 to 2020, pardon my French, where he led the AFD urban transport portfolio and implemented projects in Africa and Indonesia. Prior to joining ADB, Bertrand held various project director positions in a leading transportation engineering firm. He worked in Europe, Asia, Middle East, and Africa, and developed tailored transportation initiatives, including urban mobility plans, bus rapid transit, light rail, metro, non-motorized transport, and railways projects. And Bertrand holds a postgraduate degree in urban planning and transport from Paris Tech, and a master's degree in civil engineering and urban planning from the National Institute for Applied Sciences. Again, what an impressive bio, Bertrand, you have, and we have a very engaging presentation by you today. Let me just share my screen so that everybody can see the slides. Hold on a second. Okay, sharing the screen. Okay, Bertrand, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Elena, for the introduction. Good day and evening to all. Very happy to be here with you today. So let's jump right into it. Let's talk about the transport sector. That is how we are please go back to the previous slide. Thank you. So yeah, that is how we are looking at the transport sector in ADB when supporting our developing member country and private sector clients. Low carbon, safe, accessible, affordable transport system and services. We could also add a flavor of efficiency, innovation, resilience, climate proofing, and sustainability of operations and assets. So very ambitious, and the ambition is what we are going to see on the next slides. Next slide, please. Yeah, transport investment by subsector, lending volume, and trends. Transport is approximately 1/4, a little bit more, of Adb sovereign lending volume. The share of each subsector is fluctuating depending on the year. This comes from the fact that we are often financing very large projects. So projects have huge impact on the share on the said subsector on a given year. All told, road projects are now down below 50%, and that is no coincidence. The intention is to scale up urban transport and rail projects. We can also see here the changes in the portfolio breakdown since the early 90s. Urban transport and rail are in gray and orange, and again, clearly increasing. Next slide, please. Yeah, and this increase is continued here and will continue in the future pipeline. Next slide. Now on the Adb Strategy 2030 and where transport contributes to the strategy. So the overarching target of the Adb Strategy 2030 is to build a prosperous, inclusive, resilient, and sustainable Asia and the Pacific. And Adb is getting away from pure infrastructure finance, as it was explained to you earlier in the energy sector and by Rustam in his introduction. And we favor more innovative and integrated solution with high value addition. So we are here on the screen, the 7 operational priorities of the Adb strategy: poverty reduction, gender, climate change, livable cities, rural development, food security, governance, and the last one is regional cooperation and integration. The transport sector contributes to all of the 7 operational priorities. And other than operational priorities, strategy is looking at value addition through finance, knowledge, and partnership, including with the private sector. And lastly, promoting innovative technology as well as delivering integrated solution are strong guiding principle. So the main takeaway for you here is certainly on value addition, innovative technology, and integrated solution. In case it is a competitive advantage you have in the sector, it's something you may want to make sure it's part of your proposal and bids and clearly put it forward. Next slide, please. Yeah, so still on this, so we really see transport as an enabler of development, and this is how it contributes to various dimensions of the Adb strategy. With again, the operational priority we had on the previous slide. Strong focus on maintenance and asset management for sustainability, including financial sustainability. I would also like to underscore, it was done by my colleague before, but it's increasingly important and very critical to our operation. So I would like to underscore the climate agenda and all the international agreements which are placed at the center of our strategy and the support we are providing to our client. So I will not say more, but that relates obviously to the alignment of project with the Paris Agreement and the contribution to the sustainable development goals. And I like to mention this number that may be huge, that relates to the Sustainable Development Goal 11.12 on accessibility. Transport is all about providing access. And in urban area, we have 60% of the population in Asia and the Pacific that is still lacking access to proper and efficient public transport system. Just to give you the magnitude of the challenges we are facing in the region and why we are placing such project in the center of our strategy. Next slide, please. Yeah, so this slide and the next will give you an indication of the type of project being implemented and upcoming. We will also play 2 short videos, speaking better than my words, to show you some, we may call it signature project, or the kind of integrated operation we really would like to support. Before going to this project, I would like to mention that complete information is on Adb website. So it has been mentioned to you, but it's essential. And what I found interesting is that you have information at the project level and also at the country level. So you will find there very valuable information. So by country first, you will find a business plan for each country. And this business plan is agreed between the government and Adb in each country. And you will find all projects for approval in the next 3-4 years. That includes lending and non-lending products, which mean project loans, as well as planned technical assistances. And the document is reviewed and updated on a yearly basis. So rather than going through all the country one by one, and all this is evolving, if a particular country is of interest to you, you will find all this information. I know my colleagues have told you that before, but it's really the primary source of information you will have. And now by projects, you will find information on each Adb finance project and the procurement plan. With a clear indication not only of the procurement strategy, but also the contracts and the packages. That includes an indicative contract amount and a procurement method, as well as a tentative date for advertisement. So for all of those countries we'll be talking about, you will be able to find more details on the Adb website. So very strong source of information there. So here we are starting with the Central West Asia, of course. So you may already be familiar with these programs. So we are involved at the regional level with the Kyber program that involves transport, energy, and other dimensions. Basically, we find strong support to road and railway, but increasing support to urban transport, and you're finding on this screen all the key dimensions that I've mentioned before. And we are now going to the next slide, and we'll play the first video that is a bus rapid transit project in Peshawar, Pakistan. And that has been commissioned in 2020. And that has received international recognition recently. In the project and the city of Peshawar has been awarded the prestigious Sustainable Transport Award for 2022. And I guess the video that we are about to show you will explain you why this project is generating so much attraction in the transport community. We cannot hear the sound, Elena. Maybe because you're muted.
Hold on a second. Let me just start again. Hold on a second. Thank you. Yep.
हयाताबाद से मैं यहाँ पे जब आता था लोकल ट्रांसपोर्ट में तो कम से कम 1 घंटा 1.5 घंटा लग जाता था। ये ज़ू पेशावर की बसेस जो हैं ये फुली एयर कंडीशन है, प्लस इसमें हीटर भी लगे हुए हैं। इसके अलावा वाईफाई की सहूलत भी अवेलेबल है और चार्जिंग पोर्ट्स भी आपके लिए अवेलेबल है बसेस में।
I was harassed by this taxi driver You feel safe when you think that you are every time protected and cameras watching you.
Previous transport systems में ये impossible था हमारे लिए उसको operate करना, क्योंकि उसमें तो wheelchair का सवाल ही पैदा नहीं होता कि आप wheelchair के साथ उसमें चढ़ सकते थे। तो जहाँ तक BRT की बात है, क्रॉस डिसेबिलिटी के लिए यूनिवर्सली एक्सेसिबल है। हम इसमें बगैर किसी के मदद लिए हुए हम इसमें रोजाना सफर कर सकते हैं।
Nowadays, if you ask anybody in Peshawar, and the Peshawar BRT is something they will be very proud of talking about it. It creates a lot of quality food passes. It has new energy efficient street lights. It provides much clean passenger vehicles, and it generates a much nicer environment. In terms of urban mobility, a system encourages people from all walks of the life to use the public transport, and it's really changing and transforming the city.
Thank you, Elena. I assume we are going back to the slide. So as you have seen, basically, if you remember this slide when I showed you the Adb strategy, operational priorities, and guiding principles. So this project is really aligned with the most of those. Now, South Asia. So we would like to emphasize again urban transport and mass transit, rail also that is increasing, and the kind of assistance that you can see here. Strong focus on road safety, for instance, that also requires some knowledge and some technology. Mass rapid transit is increasing, particularly in India. You have here the Delhi Meerut Rapid Regional Transit System, and that's the next video that we are going to show you. Also to tell you that Adb is financing all type of mobility solution and transport solution as long as they are fitted to the need and make sense in a particular context. So we often have the question, you're financing buses and not a rail transit system. We are financing both. It really depends on the project and on the urban environment. And as long as it makes sense and due diligence are conducted and all the planning and all the work has been done, those projects may be financed by Adb. This project also, we have others in the region. We have similar projects that are being developed in the Philippines, for instance, in Metro Manila. And just to emphasize that this kind of projects are increasing in the portfolio. So this Delhi Meerut corridor, it's 87 kilometers, I guess, was approved in 2020, and the implementation is going well. And the government of India has also requested Adb and the World Bank to finance another corridor similar. But these projects are at approximately $4.5 to $5 billion. So we are talking about large size infrastructure. And I'll stop here. The video will explain the rest.
The National Capital Region, or NCR, is the largest urban agglomeration in India and centered around India's capital city, New Delhi, and encompasses several surrounding districts. With a total population of more than 46 million that is spread over an area of over 58,000 square kilometers, NCR generates nearly 8% of India's GDP. However, most of the socio-economic development of NCR has been centered around Delhi, which accounts for 37% of the total population of NCR, while covering less than 5% of the NCR area. With Delhi projected to be the most populous city in the world in 2028, there will be tremendous pressure on its infrastructure that will cost 12% of Delhi's GDP in terms of air pollution, fatalities, wasted fuel, and reduced productivity. Thus, there is a need to shift to polycentric developmental approach where surrounding parts within NCR are able to absorb this pressure from Delhi. The Functional Plan on Transport for NCR 2032 has identified 8 regional rapid transit systems, RRTS, corridors to connect the towns in NCR with high-speed rail-based commuter transit services. 3 regional rapid transit system corridors, Delhi-Meerut, Delhi-Alwar, and Delhi-Panipat, will be developed under Phase 1, with Sarai Kale Khan as the common station. The first corridor connecting Delhi to Meerut will span a distance of 82 kilometers and have world-class transport infrastructure supporting average speeds of 100 kilometers per hour. It is expected to reduce the travel time from 3.5 hours to about 1 hour. Asian Development Bank will co-finance the capital expenditure and envisages a 3-pronged outcome from the project: commissioning the Delhi-Meerut RRTS corridor, strengthening the institutional capacity of NCRTC, improving mobility and economic opportunities for women and differently abled. ADB will provide finance plus support that will include building multimodal integrated station, technical assistance for exploring transit-oriented development, and selection of a shadow operator. The project will have well-lit and CCTV cameras supervised coaches and public areas in all stations, as well as patrolling by security guards to ensure safety of women. Further, mobility, visual, and hearing assistive aids will be provided to 1,000 differently abled persons. Overall, the project is expected to have a substantial demonstration effect and pave the way for integrated mobility and sustainable development of NCR.
So as you could see, so there is a strong focus on the integration between urban and transport planning. Other dimension like transit-oriented development, latest rail technology. You could also notice the private sector participation, and just like for the other project, the BRT project, a strong gender component. Next slide, please. So we are now in Southeast Asia region. So I will not go through all the project, but you can see that there is a variety of intervention, still the same topic. Again, a combination of large size infrastructure project like the one we have just seen, and more tailored intervention. For instance, to give you the example of the Philippines, ADB is currently co-financing a project similar to the one we have seen in Delhi, but also looking at secondary cities and transforming the bus industry and bus network and bus services in the city of Davao. Next slide, please. East Asia for ADB, as you may know, is China and Mongolia. Still some project being implemented in China, and in Mongolia, a lot of projects, rail project being developed regional connectivity, focus also on road safety. And there have been some dialogue going on for quite some time to improve urban transport in Ulaanbaatar as well, with some contract coming there as well related to the project. Road development as well in Mongolia. And then the Pacific region, where of course you see a stronger focus on maritime and aviation, not surprisingly, and development of road. The question we have is ADB going to continue to finance roads, given all the commitments in the climate agenda? Under certain conditions, the answer is yes, because roads are still needed. Maybe not as we were doing it in the past, of course, but still this project will continue. So in a nutshell, we have an increased focus on innovation, knowledge, integrated solution, sustainability of assets. That's really what I try to explain through this slide and the video. Road is still 50% of our portfolio, and I just mentioned that it will continue to decrease, but still be there. Rail and urban transport increasing, with some large projects, as we explained and shown. So this is creating new opportunity for consulting firm with experience in this subsector and able to deliver on holistic approach and integrated solution. There is also in all transport subsector an increased focus on the sustainability, the financial sustainability, so it comes with the operation, but also enabling proper operation and maintenance, including asset management. So if that is the kind of project you are able to support and deliver as consultant, supplier, or contractor, you definitely should be able to play a role. And our DMCs, developing member countries, will definitely want to receive your proposal and see you taking part in the competition. So with that, I will say thank you. I'm happy to expand on any aspect of the presentation. I think it was already a bit longer than expected, and I apologize for that. And of course, if you have questions, I'd be happy to continue the discussion. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you so much, Bertrand, for the overview and for the video, and also for emphasizing the importance of transportation to the developing world. As some studies show that the closer the community is to the transportation hub, the higher standards of living. And I think that's specifically pertinent to Central Asia. And in the time where we are facing critical challenges with the global supply chain, again, for Central Asia and some other countries in Asia that are either landlocked or double landlocked, I think access to a better transportation system plays not only from the social standards of view, but also from economic, from prosperity, from stability as well. So thank you so much for the overview. To all our viewers, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them during the, you can post them in the chat or Q&A, and we'll be happy to share them with the speakers. Our next speaker is Irene Duta, and Irene is going to talk about healthcare sector. And again, like many other speakers, Irene has a very impressive, bio. Irene is a senior health specialist at Asian Development Bank. He is a health economist who has worked extensively on health sector reform and health financing, especially on scale-up of health insurance schemes. Before ADB, he was the corporate lead for USAID-funded project on health sector reform in the Philippines, technical director on health financing for USAID-funded global health project, as well as team lead for innovative financing for social protection activity in Asia. He has experience in primary care and human resources for health, with a focus on infectious disease and maternal reproductive health financing. Previously, he worked at Palladium and ABT Associates, both USAID implement organizations, as well as the Clinton Foundation, RAND, and the World Bank. He has a PhD in policy analysis with a focus on HIV and pandemic influence economics, a bachelor's in politics, philosophy and economics from Oxford, and bachelor's in economics from the University of Delhi. Again, what an impressive bio, Arun, so much experience, so much education. And of course, we're delighted to have you here and learn about the opportunities in the healthcare sector. So let me just share the screen with you, with the audience, so that you can share your presentation. All right, Arun.
Thank you so much, Elena. I hope everyone can hear me.
Yep.
So thanks for that introduction as well. Good day to everyone. So yeah, this is the transition to the social sectors, one of important areas within ADB's programming and our lending portfolio. So health has, of course, been in the spotlight, and I'll be covering a little bit of the background for our region, but also spending some time briefly on our portfolio. Next slide, please. So where are we in terms of our progress? Obviously, COVID-19 has occupied a lot of our attention, but before that, our region, Asia and the Pacific, was making relatively good progress, globally speaking, on universal health coverage. And universal health coverage is, of course, our joint effort to reach access and financial protection in using healthcare for everyone. So as you can see, in our 40 countries that have lending and grant operations, as Ambassador Wong said, we have mixed progress, but our richest countries, upper middle income countries, were definitely above global average on some indicators, for example, on coverage, and yet below global average or performing poorly on high household expenditure. So that suggests that we, as a collective or community, are looking to improve as we exit the pandemic, as we look into the endemic phase. And one of the things that we are going to have to contend with is a triple burden. On the right is some language around that. So this really means looking at communicable diseases like COVID-19, but also non-communicable diseases. And of course, as I think other speakers have mentioned, climate change remains a major focus and concern for our region. Next slide, please. Summarizing some of those continuing effects from COVID-19 and also looking forward, we want to get back onto the growth track, so especially to improve access to routine health services. As I think you will see from our pipeline of projects, we are increasingly focusing on investments into diagnostic and curative services, and especially the Central West region. We have done a lot of work investing in the hospital sectors. So if you have expertise and capabilities in hospital infrastructure, digitalization, health information systems, I think you will find opportunities with ADB. We are also investing heavily into the public health system. So this is everything from surveillance of new diseases. So how does the health system know that there is a new pandemic or a new epidemic? So all of the infrastructure for that, but also improving on governance and regional cooperation. And in Central Asia, we have done really good work with the Central Asian Regional Economic Cooperation Group, and their health strategy was recently approved, which received a lot of support from ADB. And so this is an area of interest for us and learning actually from COVID-19. Next slide, please. In terms of how the most recent history of ADB's financing looks, here is a picture on the left for the last year. What is interesting about last year is that it was the largest year ever for ADB's financing in the health sector. And so ADB's financing reached about 30% of total commitments, and a large part of that is the blue part here, which is our Asia Pacific vaccine access facilities. So ADB provided both loans and grants to our developing member countries to procure vaccines. And this has, of course, helped quite a few of them, including in the Central West Asia region, reach higher levels of coverage. But we recognize that not every economy has yet reached the 70% of population mark. So there's more work to be done. But we are seeing a transition As you look on the right, you're seeing that from 2022, our financing is being increasingly accessed for non-vaccine related, more general health system support. So we are seeing a return back to business as usual, but at much higher levels of lending and financing, meaning that there is a lot more interest from our member countries in investing in the health sector. And this could be because a lot of them have realized that there were major gaps in terms of health system strengthening core capacities to respond to pandemics, including a possible future pandemic if one was to emerge. And this is causing them to, of course, reinvest. Next slide, please. So we are processing an overall vision document, as many other sectors and thematic groups within ADB are doing right now, to cover this next decade. So it's actually dated from 2021, but the document will be released this year. And in this document, we summarize our vision of where we want to go in terms of being a partner for our member countries. And you can see on the left, we have identified some key trends in our region. And these may be familiar to those who have been looking at the G20 and several other processes globally of cooperation and agenda setting. So as I think Bertrand also mentioned, cities are a big focus for ADB. There are big accumulations of population and of economic activity. So we will be looking at cities and strengthening their resilience against climate change. We have a lot of member countries that are facing rapid aging. And this brings a lot of different challenges, including of rising burden of non-communicable disease. So we want to look at that. Decentralization and regional cooperation, as I mentioned, Central Asia, but also South Asia, and in the Southeast Asia region, we have many collectives that we are working with to improve health security and investment. And across all of this, we want to look at digitalization. So use of digital technology, mobile money, health wallets, health insurance on your phone, using integration of data and analysis using mobile devices, and many other technologies are part of our focus. These will all come to bear on the health system through perhaps 4 core domains or focal areas, and we will be mostly doing our lending, our technical assistance, our grant making in these areas. Traditionally, these have been called the building blocks. So you can see them on here. I will not read them through, but a lot of our opportunities for procurement and technical assistance fall somewhere in these domains. So we often need support from consulting organizations that have expertise in doing public administration work, helping governments with health sector reform. We are looking at technology providers who can help in the infrastructure, data systems, information communication technology, and such areas of the health system. Across all of this, we'll be, of course, focusing on gender. Our gender equality theme is very strong in the health sector and social sector overall. Pandemic preparedness, which focuses on public health and health security, and of course, climate change adaptation, as well as mitigation in the health sector. Next slide, please. So now I'll quickly summarize some of our opportunities, and apologies that they do not have more detail on each individual project, but I will pick out some in our Central West Asia department for a little bit more elaboration. So here in the top, you have Afghanistan, Turkmenistan, Kyrgyz Republic, and Pakistan as some of our projects in the region. And the $100 million for Afghanistan is, of course, part of a $400 million grant project, which is really focused on essential services for the Afghan people, working through the UN system. And it actually involves about $200 million total for health, but most of that is for vaccines, if those vaccines can be delivered. We also have a Kyber Paktunkwa health system strengthening project, which is in the same region as the video that you saw on Peshawar. This is a very interesting project which will help to improve hospital capacity in a place where very little secondary healthcare was available. Also on this slide, you can see a few of the different emphasis areas. So we have a lot of work to do on governance in the People's Republic of China, but we're also working on healthy and age-friendly cities, which connects to our demographic transition agenda. In Southeast Asia, we have a lot of regional cooperation work, as you can see in Cambodia, the sub-region border areas health project, but also focusing on health sector reform and improving the quality of healthcare in a few other member countries. Next slide, please. On this slide, we have the pipeline for this year for South Asia and, of course, our private sector department, which does our non-sovereign projects. In South Asia, which is one of our largest regions for social sector lending, we have some very large projects. For example, in Bangladesh, potentially a project to help the government invest in additional doses of COVID vaccines, but also potentially into manufacturing capacity. And in India, we will be supporting the government's ongoing health sector reform agenda through a policy-based loan and smaller projects in Maldives and Bhutan. I want to quickly talk about Uzbekistan, since that is, of course, a country of focus for this business opportunity seminar. So this is an innovative project where we are taking an investment position in a dialysis provider, which is originally an Indian company, but they will be opening up to 6 dialysis centers across Uzbekistan. So again, this highlights how we see the importance of creating additional capacity to cater to non-communicable diseases. Unfortunately, this is a rising disease burden in our region. Changes to lifestyle, changes to occupational modes, and a more sedentary lifestyle are, of course, increasing risk. So we must cater to the health needs that exist. So I think creating more infrastructure and capacity to deal with this need is very relevant. Next slide, please. Now moving into next year, here I start with Central and West Asia and highlight the Uzbekistan project. This project has been going through some preliminary work, some technical assistance to develop the scope, and hopefully this year we will have a very good idea where the government would like to invest. It's a large project focusing on maternal health. So perinatal care really focuses on improving healthcare prior to conception, prior to birth. If I could go back to the previous slide, Elena. And in other parts of Central and West Asia, we have a large health sector program in Georgia, and a similar health sector reform project in Armenia. Both of these countries are, of course, in Caucasus and have similar challenges, aging demographics, and a health sector that needs to be transformed to reduce the excessive use of hospital care. So I think very important and transformational use of technology. So again, if you have capacities and interests in the Caucasus, and you can certainly look out for our business opportunities webpage. Next slide, please. On the previous slide, Elena. Thank you. So on Southeast Asia, very quickly, you can see some very large projects, and 2 of them are in the Philippines. These are again supporting the government in major health sector reform. So because these are policy-based lending projects, most of the spending would be through the executing agency, the government agencies. These are structured differently. And in Indonesia, we have another support to human capital where we are integrating our health sector programming alongside social assistance. So that's an innovative project that I wanted to call out. As you can see, South Asia is again an area where we have very large projects. Many of them are policy-based loans, which means the resources again flow to government to align with the government's health sector reform. But we do have investment projects such as in Bangladesh and Sri Lanka that may be of interest and again involved new technology and new ways of delivering care. Next slide. I will not go through the 2024 pipeline. It is still tentative, as of course looking out is. But here you will again see that we have large, big ticket projects that again will provide additional support to the future health sector reform agendas. And we have some projects where health is integrated with infrastructure, such as in Pakistan, which will be very important to continue support to urban areas as well as to innovative transport projects where health can be a component. Next slide. So in terms of what my department can speak to for the technical assistance pipeline, and these are projects where we regularly procure support from consulting firms, mostly to cater to our developing member countries' needs in high technology spaces where expertise from outside the region can sometimes be useful. So certainly firms in the US have supported us a lot in the last few years during COVID-19. And we expect that we will continue to bring in that kind of expertise. So our particular department has these technical assistance projects, and I want to highlight the very large project here in the middle, about $80 million, which has been focusing on immediate support on COVID-19. So going forward, we see needs in the biopharmaceutical manufacturing and resilient recovery from the pandemic, which includes looking at governance reforms and health security improvements. So there are certainly opportunities, and you will find them on the Adb website that are currently active. So we're actively recruiting firms. And then looking forward, we have some funds to invest in digital technology, again, to support the health sector. So we will be potentially doing procurements in this to provide consulting services to improve digitalization of health insurance, health financing. And we're also looking to work with several travel-related international bodies to improve sustainable and safe travel in the post-pandemic period. So I think next slide is probably my last slide. Here is our sort of contact network. And these are all senior people who are available perhaps for specific inquiries related to their regions. And I will leave it at that. Back to you, Elena. Thank you.
Sure. Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Irene, for highlighting the opportunities in the health sector and the status of the Adb health portfolio. I think we have a raised hand here. Ozge, please, you're allowed to talk. Make sure that it's a question with a question mark. Ozge, you have to unmute yourself. Okay, well, Ozge had a raised hand, but I guess she's having some technical issues. Let's move on. Next, we have another speaker who is going to talk about the opportunities in the procurement sector. And I would like to invite Oliver Leonard, who is a principal procurement specialist in Adb's Procurement Portfolio and Financial Management Department, to speak about the opportunities. Oliver is based in Tashkent, Uzbekistan, where he provides oversight and support to development projects that include infrastructure, energy, transport, water, urban development across Central, West, and South Asia regions. Oliver leads various Adb initiatives to sustain government's policy, governance, and procurement reforms. He joined Adb in 2010 and has held various positions in Adb operations and corporate procurement in Manila. Previously, he was a senior contract officer at the European Space Agency in Rome, focusing on Earth observation, missions, and satellites. He started his career as a legal officer with the European Commission in Brussels. Oliver completed his law degree at University Catholic de Louvain and holds a Master in European Law from University Gent, a Master in Intellectual Property Law from Catholic University Louvain, and a law degree in International Business Law from University College London. Oliver has MCIBS, FCIRB, and CP3P professional certifications. Again, excellent experience, wonderful educational academic background. And so we look forward to hearing Oliver's presentation. Oliver, the floor is.
Thank you, Elena. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Well, it seems I'm the lawyer in the room, and I apologize for that, but I'll try to stay away from my background. But that's probably the reason why I have many slides and I don't have any very good videos to offer. But I try to go quickly through them, also as many of my colleagues already touched upon some of the aspects of my presentation in their excellent presentations. As Elena said, I'm based here in Tashkent, and it's really a pleasure to have you today, because I really see a lot of opportunities are arising in Uzbekistan and in the region, and I really hope to see more and more US companies also provide their expertise and work in the region. Next slide. So my role today basically is to give you a brief overview of the type of opportunities available, how we procure them, and basically how the system is kind of structured. So I'll give you a very brief, because it's already been described, snapshot of ADBs and its operations. Then we'll highlight the type of opportunities that are offered. I will talk also a little bit about the Adb Procurement Framework and how we procure consulting services. And finally, the last slides, it's a lot of information about where to find these business opportunities, primarily on the Adb websites, and also opportunities relating to COVID-19 intervention. Next slide, please. Next. Thank you. So yeah, a brief about Adb. As was already said, it's a multilateral public institution founded in the 66 with 68 members. The US and Japan are actually the two major shareholders. And how Adb is adding value, basically first, obviously through finance. So we provide our own financing to our members and partners. By providing loans, grants, technical assistance, guarantees, equity investments, all that to promote social and economic development. But we also mobilize basically other sources of funding in order to maximize the development impact of our assistance. So try to mobilize also financial resources through co-financing operations with other donors, or to tap into official commercial or credit export credit sources. So that's the financing. Adb also, its expertise and its body of knowledge, I would say, provides value, as it can focus on basically the practical value that fits the local conditions in Asia and the Pacific, providing advisory services, identifying lessons, and replicating good practices across the region. And finally, Adb is also adding value through partnership, through facilitating policy dialogue and collaboration among various partners and stakeholders. Next slide, please. This was already described as well. So you see here the Adb active sovereign portfolio by region, around $104 billion aggregate value of ongoing projects, so contracts for goods, works, consulting services, a bit more than 104 in 2021. Sovereign portfolio, basically, it means the projects financed by loans and grants, which are covered by sovereign guarantees, so guaranteed by the national governments, and that are implemented by the borrowers, implemented directly by the government, as opposed to private sector initiatives. And across Adb's 5 regions, as you can see, South Asia comes first, then closely Central West Asia and Southeast Asia, with about 25 billion each in total, and then East Asia, and then the Pacific, which is like 14 small island countries. And so the vast majority of these Adb funded contracts require bidders and consulting services. And as was already said by Ambassador Wong, is that the eligibility requirement is that these bidders and contractors and service providers and consultants need in principle to be from Adb member countries. That's an eligibility requirement for participating in Adb. On the right side, you can see by the breakdown by sector, transport and energy, as was already said, account for about 50% of the total of funding. We can see a slight decrease from 2020 to 2021, the reason being that some of the funds were actually repurposed towards the COVID-19 emergency response financing. And you can see the last others category increased a little bit, principally in the health sector. In the future, we can expect a shift towards green and more innovative solutions. This is already happening in the rail and urban sectors, and also renewable energy, as was already explained, and also increasingly in the health and education. These are becoming increasing areas of focus going forward. Next. Briefly, these are the non-sovereign operation. The cumulative portfolio for 2021, so about 10, I think consolidated figures go to maybe 14 billion. It is small compared to the sovereign portfolio, but it is actually increasing steadily. By non-sovereign assistance, we mean financing extended to private enterprises and institutions, as well as extended to some sub-sovereign public sector entities, which are basically not covered by the sovereign guarantee. Next slide. This is another picture of the operation sovereign, non-sovereign, and the breakdown by sector for 2020 and 2029. Basically, ADB annual report 2021 was just released yesterday and is available on our website. So if you are interested, you can just find it there, more details and more up-to-date information. Next. And this is giving you the magnitude of ADB's intervention in response of the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020. I will not go into detail as the previous speaker already did a good presentation of what we did, but I think ADB had a significant impact in the region, and I could see that especially in Uzbekistan. Next slide. Next slide. So now the business opportunities. So you can see that there are about, in 2020, the overall procurement total about 10 billion, in excess of 10 billion in contracts. The bulk of it, as you can see, goes to works, about 70%. And then we have goods and services, and finally consulting services. So there are plenty of opportunities. These are the figures for 2020, but they are even higher for 2021. Next slide. To give you a quick idea of the top suppliers by member states for goods, consulting services, and for works. So you have here data from 2018 to 2021. We can see that for goods, the US companies came third in 2019. For consulting services, third in 2019 and 2020. And I think there are a lot of very good American companies providing consulting services, especially in engineering, supervision, and detailed design. And finally, for works, we don't see in 2021 or in the other years any US companies in the top 5, which may be understandable given the location where the works need to take place and where the labor is needed. Next slide. Top suppliers by amount. This is 2021. UNICEF and Sinovac came first, obviously because of the pandemic, provision of vaccines and also personal protective equipment. So exceptionally, these are the two top suppliers. And then you have BML from India doing heavy construction, providing heavy construction equipment and rolling stock. You have TB from China, manufacturer of transformers and electrical equipment, and the China National Technical Import-Export Corporation, also from China, obviously, and active in energy projects. Next one. For works, the largest number of contract and aggregated amount for that period goes to Larsen and Toubro from India, followed by Siemens in the energy sector, China Railway, NCC from India, and Acciona from the Philippines. And then finally, for consulting services, next one. And there we can see some American companies actually. These consulting services mainly they are for construction supervision, for detailed design, project implementation support. First is Aegis International from France, and secondly we have TY Lin. Maybe some of you are on this call, headquartered in San Francisco. For instance, doing the detailed design for the Bataan Cavite Interlink Bridge in the Philippines, and other also project implementation consultancy for large projects. Then we have Eric from UK, Korea consultant, and CTI from Japan. Next. So this is a summary of the data for US companies. So you can see that the top 5 contractors from the US, they are active in sectors like transports, ICT, energy. What's strange and of the UNICEF has been put as a US company there again because of the pandemic, and probably because they are headquartered in New York. For goods, for instance, we can see Progress Rail Locomotive. They won a contract for a supply of 40 locomotives in Bangladesh. In consulting, we have TY Lin again, Shilai, HGI. Okay, next slide. So basically, most of the information I just presented, it can be found on our dashboard for any user that would be interested to drill down into the data that we have. And I would encourage you to have a look, as you may find actually some useful information on our operations, where the contracts were awarded, the size of those contracts, and this might also help you in your strategy and your approach in bidding for ADB contracts. Next. So why go for ADB funded contracts? Well, first, it's pretty secure. There's a certainty that the financing is available and will be released by ADB. I mean, for any contract that appears on a procurement plan, its financing basically has been secured through a loan or a grant. So the financing is assured. Secondly, there are many, as you know, opportunities in the Asia-Pacific region, and these are growing rapidly. Similarly, and in parallel, ADB's operations, sovereign and non-sovereign operations, are also growing rapidly. I think it is reassuring also for bidders that all the bidding processes, the contracts, the documents, they all follow internationally accepted standards and best practices, and they are also harmonized with other MEBs. So if you are not familiar with ADB, but you are used to bidding for World Bank contracts, basically you should also be comfortable with ADB process because it is fairly similar. And finally, there's also a very strong integrity oversight to ensure that the procurement principles are observed and free from any corruption. Next. So this is, well, it's missing some words, but this is basically the project cycle wheel. And you can see that right throughout the project cycle, there are opportunities for consultants, contractors, and suppliers. Basically, ADB heavily relies on consultants at all the stages of the project, at the inception, at the concept, at the preparations, through feasibility studies, for procurement supports, capacity building, and then project implementation. obviously contractors and suppliers would come into the pictures. They are the ones to provide the inputs during the implementation of the projects. Again, we've seen with some consulting support. So the whole cycle needs basically your support and inputs. Next slide. Oh, okay. Next. Let's go to the next. Okay. So what are the types of business opportunities? Well, it goes from supply of goods, heavy machinery, equipment, hardware, software, furniture, rolling stock, medical supplies, vaccines, a lot of civil work, as we've said, road, railways, bridges, waterworks, schools, power plants, pump stations, water treatment plant. As Rustam saying, we're moving more and more towards EPC kind of contracts or single responsibility contracts, with sometimes operations and maintenance including, or even design, build, operate type of contracts in the water sector. Consulting services, obviously, either consulting hired directly by ADB, or as was also said, hired under the projects that are implemented by the government. And again, that goes from project preparation to implementation, a lot of site supervision, detailed design, preparation of knowledge projects, advisory, and also staff consultant who would be hired by ADB and in order to augment its own resources, if you like, when needed. Finally, non-consulting services, also service training to executing agencies or to other agencies, translation, event management. Next. Moving on, Adb Procurement Framework. Next slide, please. So in the recent years, as you may know, ADB undertook a major procurement reform, so shifting from a rules-based prescriptive policy to a principle-based and more flexible approach. And so the ADB new procurement framework is guided through the Adb Procurement Policy and the procurement regulation from ADB borrowers. And it came into force in 2017. As you can see on the right of the slide, the old framework still applies in parallel to projects approved before 1st July 2017, but obviously it is fading, and the new project will almost fully apply in a couple of years. Next slide. And why we did that reform? The expected impact, basically, well, it covers every aspect of more effective procurement, basically. It's trying to improve the quality and the value for money from the procurement itself, to do the procurement in the fastest way, to attract higher quality suppliers, to lower the transaction cost, to continue strengthening the capacity in terms of procurement of our developing member countries. That is very important, and we're spending a lot of efforts on that. And finally, to improve the relationship between the governments and the suppliers. Also, the new framework is aligned with that of the World Bank and other MDBs. They also adopted a similar approach. So it's easier for everybody to work with the same principles, basically. Next slide. So that new framework basically allows for a fit for purpose kind of approach, and we believe that that flexibility that is given by the new framework basically benefits better the purposes of each of the projects, rather than having a one-size-fits-all with the thresholds and prescriptive goals. Next. So the procurement policy basically revolves around these 6 principles. These are principles, as you know, these are widely accepted in public procurement worldwide, and they basically underpin all Adb procurements, with an emphasis on quality and value for money. As Ambassador Wang said, cost alone is sometimes not sufficient, but we need really to try and find the optimal procurement benefits. And it might not be derived only from economic considerations, but also may focus or include social, environmental, or ethical aspects. Next. Just to record the roles and relationship and the responsibilities in the procurement, Adb itself, in principle, does not issue the contracts on loan-funded projects. It is basically the responsibility of the borrower, so the government. So there's no contractual relationship between the contractors and the consultants and Adb, unless the only exception is when Adb is recruiting consultants directly under technical assistance in this case, and I will come back to that in a few moments. So there's no direct contractual relationship. However, Adb really plays a strong oversight role to ensure that the procurement actions and the decisions are compliant with the procurement policy. So I would say, as a contractor or supplier, you can be reassured that Adb has interest in ensuring that the contracts are awarded fairly and transparently, and that there is, and I think it's part of the principle of fairness, basically, that there is an equitable distribution of risks, of rights, and of obligations between the parties in the contracts. And finally, I'll come back to that. There is also some complaint mechanisms in place. Next slide. Briefly, there are many procurement methods. The preferred one remains the open competition. And most of the procurement will be advertised following that method. But again, the flexibility and the fitness for purpose allows basically government and Adb to opt for the optimal method. And in some cases, depending on the project or the circumstances, open competition might not provide the best value for money or deliver the best procurement outcomes, and we may fall back on other methods, in order to deliver that money. So it is more flexible. Next slide. And I will finish with my overview of the procurement policy. Yeah, Adb has a very strong, like other MDBs, anti-corruption policy. All the parties in the bidding process or in some way connected to an Adb finance project, including myself, must abide by the highest ethical standards, and there is really zero tolerance for integrity violations. So you can find the integrity framework and the guiding principles in these 2 documents there on our website. These are also harmonized amongst MDBs, and there are cross-debarment mechanisms between all MDBs, so that one company that would be sanctioned by one MDB may also automatically, or not automatically, depends, be sanctioned by other MDBs. Next slide. Moving on to consulting services, as I know many people on the call may be from that background, basically. There are 2 main types of consulting, essentially opportunities that would tend to arise for Adb finance projects. There are opportunities that we call TA consulting, and then there are those under loan and grant consulting, where you engage directly with the government, with the executing agency. And I highlighted the differences here. So in TA consulting, the contract is with Adb, and there is a direct payment by Adb. UK law rules the contract. And there are some privileges and immunities that may be granted to the experts by virtue of that contract. And there is also some tax exemption, but on the tax, really, we always ask companies to assess themselves the tax liabilities, as ADB is not in a position really to provide advice in every country, and the situation change quickly. And the complaints mechanism would involve ADB. On the other side, when the consulting is recruited basically by the executing agency, by the government, ADB has a role of oversight, make sure again the process, the selection process is fair, transparent, and follows the rules. The payment is done either by the government or directly by ADB if it has been arranged, that can be arranged. The law of the borrower country would apply. Again, the law, the tax law of the country would in principle apply, but again, you need to check country by country. And the complaints mechanisms go primarily to the borrower and with a copy to ADB. Next. Next, you may click. Next effect. Yeah, and one more. Thank you. Thank you. So procurement of consultants. As I said, we have procurement on one hand of technical assistance loans and grant, under technical assistance loans and grant, and these can be either procured through firms or procuring directly individual experts. On the right side, you have staff consultants, which are basically procured by ADB staffing budget, and as I said, they come and they would supplement ADB staff when the need arises. Normally at the earlier stages of the project. So the recruitment may be national or international. For firms internationally, the international firms must be from any member country. So there is in principle, there are some exceptions, but in principle there is an eligibility restriction. However, with the new procurement framework, ADB lifted some of the eligibility restriction, not for the firm itself, but for the expert presented by the firm, to ensure a bit more flexibility and make sure we get the best people. So as an international firm, as long as you belong to an ADB member country, the expert that you would present for an ADB finance project may be from any country, maybe so from South America, for instance. This is no longer a restriction. For individual consultant selections, the restriction still applies. So where individuals do not apply through a firm, but directly individual. Next slide. Yeah, you may click a few times. Thank you. So no, one back. Thank you. So this is basically the workflow of the consulting firm recruitment. Basically, the requirements are drafted and detailed terms of reference are drafted. Then requests for expressions of interest are advertised. 14 days. Everything goes through CMS. It is our consulting management system, only an online system where all consultants have to register and express their interest. I will come back to that at the end. Then, based on the expressions of interest received, we will do a short list. There's no limit to the number of companies or individuals that have to be on a short list, but we usually advise at least 3 or 2 or 3 to have some competitions. And in general, I would say there are like 3, 4, 6, or 8 companies on the short list. The shortlisted companies then are we would float the request for proposal to these companies. And depending on the complexity of the assignment, they will have between 15 to 35 days to reply and submit their proposal. Technical and financial proposal that will then be evaluated. Then there will be negotiation. The contract will be placed. That's a brief overview of the process. Next slide. Yeah, you may click. I'm sorry for that, Elena. There are many methods, sorry, to recruit firms, but the primary method that we will use is the QCBS, quality and cost-based selection. So it's the evaluation is basically based on the quality and the cost of the proposal, following a predefined ratio between 70 and 90% would go to the quality of the proposal, and usually between 30 or 10 would go to the cost. So that is the predominant method. But in specific circumstances, or when, for instance, the budget is limited, we may fall back on other procurement method. This will be advertised at the request for expression of interest. Next slide. Yeah, I'm gonna skip this slide because I already basically explained. Yeah, this one, if you will click, yeah. And this is the process for individual consultants recruitment. It is basically the same. It's similar to that for the firm, except that maybe the timeline might be a little bit different. Okay, next slide. Bidding strategies. Okay, giving you here a few tips for winning ADB finance assignments from experience and what we see when we receive and evaluate proposals. I think the first thing is really to understand the context and the country and what the project is and what the requirements are. Without that, it's very difficult to submit a good proposal that matches all the requirements. And we see that also in consulting more than often, that maybe the requirements were not properly understood, and so that the experts or the expertise that is proposed by the firm does not match what is required. It is obviously important to kind of do your homework and collect all the relevant business intelligence and network in the country or in the region, obviously with other companies that already have a foot in the country, are already active in the country and already have projects, not only ADB finance project, but it can be World Bank or other NDBs or other donors projects or government finance projects. So that gives you a feeling of the market and gives you better assets where you can have your competitive advantage. Obviously, when awarded a contract, you have to deliver and focus on good performance and build up your reputation. As I say, position yourself to your competitive advantage. And I think we saw that in the tables, in the figures. Some US companies have very, very strong project management expertise, project implementation for really complex and long projects. Where it comes to do work in remote areas in the Pacific, it might not be there that you will have a competitive advantage. So be sure that you know your strength, and if you are lacking part of the skills or the expertise required, obviously, it's always welcome to engage and partner with other firms that would complement your expertise, or maybe who already have experience in the country and are, for that reason, maybe more likely to actually be shortlisted. Study the bidding documents or the terms of reference. I already mentioned that. Then prepare a very strong technical proposal. And again, sometimes the requirements, the technical requirements, the procurement documents, the invitations to bid are not always clear. Sometimes we miss something or it hasn't been properly expressed in the document. So please, there's no harm in seeking clarification in writing. Throughout the process, there are many opportunities to ask for clarification, and we really encourage you to do so because it helps you better understand what the requirements are and draft the proposal accordingly. But it also helps us maybe review our requirements or clarify ourselves our documents. Next. Yes. Yeah, this is more focused on consulting, but this is basically similar kind of tips. I will just focus on the first one, which is consider the individual consulting opportunities. That is that individuals can apply even though they belong to a firm. So look at the individual consulting opportunities, and some of you staff actually may be very suitable for this individual assignment. And in case that expert is selected, basically ADB will place the contract with the firm, even though it's for an individual assignment. So don't overlook these opportunities. Firms can also basically look at individual consulting opportunities in addition to firm assignment for firms. Okay, next. Well, yeah, okay, what not to do? There are a lot of things not to do, but I think the first thing is really to pay due attention to the invitation for bid and to the requirements, procedural requirements and technical requirements. And by doing so, you probably will avoid all these pitfalls. But what we can see, for instance, failure to disclose a conflict of interest that might be ground for rejection. The conflict of interest itself may not lead to disqualification, but it's because it may be manageable, but it is the failure to disclose it that may lead to disqualification. The eligibility requirements, as I already mentioned, we still see joint ventures with one partner, which is not from an ADB country. That's outright disqualification. Late proposals are not opened. Yes, failure to respond to the requirements. Conditional bids or qualifications of certain contractual clauses that would not be acceptable. That would also lead to disqualifications. Incomplete bids or non-compliant bids, not signed or signed by unauthorized persons, or the validity period is not correct, or the performance or the bid security amount is not correct, or there's a lack of supporting document, or some test reports that were requested are not in the proposals. Some of these shortcomings, and more than often, will be grounds for disqualification immediately. Minor omissions, they may be actually clarified and rectified, obviously, if it doesn't give an undue advantage to the bidder who would rectify these omissions. Again, if there is a doubt about technical requirements, or if there is some legal language or some clauses that you don't really agree and you want to see if it's negotiable during the bidding period or during the clarification meetings, please ask written clarification, and we always try to reply to provide answers to this clarification as comprehensively and as quickly as possible, and we share the answers with all the readers. Next one. Next slide. Thank you. Finally, no, sorry. Can you quickly go back to the debriefing? As you probably know, all the unsuccessful bidders and unsuccessful consultants, they may request a debriefing from the procuring entity, be it the executing agency or ADB, if and debriefing are always a good thing to do in order for you to learn what was good in your proposal and what was less good, and how you could improve for the future opportunities. We also have a complaints handling system. Basically, there is an online form. You have the link here where you can submit your complaints, lodge your complaints, and these will be routed through the appropriate process, and they will be handled. There are processes and appropriate channels for that. Next slide. And this is the last part, and I'll try to be very short on this part. It is basically where you can find the information on these business opportunities. Well, basically, to identify, you have many ways. You can start with the country partnership strategies. It's basically a document that provides a strategic framework for ADB operations in a given country. And it is done periodically. Usually it's a 4-year cycle, and it basically highlights the country's development strategy and ADB's strategic priorities in that country. So you would already, on the long term, have an idea of which sector would be prioritized in that country. Then you have the country operations business plan that give a more refined and detailed view of ADB's operation in that country. It is aligned with the country partnership strategies, obviously, and it already includes a list of loans and grants and the projects that are in the pipeline, and it's usually reviewed every 2 years, but updated regularly. Then you have the procurement plan that you can find on ADB website, basically. And it's where you can find for each loan or grant a list of projects and a detailed list of packages. And I think Bertrand already explained that. Detailed list of packages with the type of packages, the procurement method, the cost estimate, and also the procurement estimated timeline, I would say. So this is very useful information. And as I was saying, once you see a procurement plan that has been approved, you can be sure that there is financing behind it. And then you have the general and specific procurement notices. There are advanced notices. There are notices if we do pre-qualification. You have actual invitations for bids or consulting services recruitment notices. All that appear on our website or in the consulting management system, where you can register and automatically be sent these notices. Finally, hop on opportunities for if you want to team with already contracted companies or consultants. The list of contracts awarded is also published on our website. Last one, institutional procurement notices. It is also available on our website. It's basically all the opportunities that are related to our corporate procurement. So basically everything that ADB is buying for its own needs. Mainly, I would say, for IT or facilities management in headquarters in Manila or in the country offices. There, the contract would be directly with ADB, and it's financed by ADB's own operational budget. Next. Yeah, so basically, quickly going through our website, adb.org, you click on work with us. And then on the bottom right corner, you can see operational procurement, institutional procurement. So you would, projects and tenders, you would focus on that area. Next slide, please, Elena. Yeah. And you would land on the Adb Business Center, which basically provides a wealth of information, not only on the ongoing tenders or procurement statistics, but also gives you a lot of information on the procurement policy itself, on the regulations, on the guidance, list of standard bidding documents, contract templates, specific procurement notices, as I said, the list of contracts awarded, FAQs, how-tos, etc. So there's a lot of information there geared towards contractors and suppliers or consultants, and also even for governments. Okay, next slide. Next. So this is basically the Adb consultant management system. So cms.adb.org. For any consulting opportunities, any consultant who wants to participate needs to register in the consulting management system. And once you are in the system, you will be asked to provide some information. But then you will have access to all the ongoing notices, and you will get notifications. But it is also through that system that the interactions at the time of the consulting selection will happen. So where the request for proposals will be floated, and where you will have to upload your proposals and also communicate with either Adb or the government. Most of the consulting assignments go through that system in some countries, and sometimes when the government is recruiting directly, they might still use another system. But everything is advertised anyway in the consulting system. Next slide. Operational, yeah. Again, adb.org business operational procurement, and this is where you can see all the procurement plan and the planned actions for goods, works, services. Next slide. And this is how the specific notice appear. You can drill down by sector, by region, or by type of assignment of contract. Next slide. Yeah, and register for alerts so that you get all the procurement notices directly in your mailbox. For consulting, you have to register, as I said, in the consulting management system. And with that, I think I am finished, and I really apologize if I was a bit long and maybe technical. Elena, before I close, I would like to say that for those who are in the region or wants to travel, on the 19th of May, so next month, there will be a live face-to-face business opportunity seminar taking place in Tashkent at the Hyatt Hotel. So it's on the 19th May. I will actually paste the link in the chat box. Everybody is obviously welcome, and you can register. So it will be a similar format to this one, but it will be actually face-to-face. And participants will also have the opportunity in the afternoon to meet with actually ADB officers from different sectors if they have specific questions about the pipelines and the projects in the country or in the region. And it's also a good opportunity to network with other companies. So I hope I will see a lot of you, and I'm actually very happy it is finally happening. We are having a non-virtual event here in Tashkent. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Oliver, for such an extensive and very detailed presentation, and really it shows that you're a lawyer by profession. So we appreciate the presentation, and we will certainly share the presentation with everybody. We will send a link and that will contain the presentations as well as the feedback on this webinar. I think we ran out of time, but we're just going to take maybe one question addressed to Bertrand. As commuting patterns are changing due to COVID, many people work from home and from offices in suburban areas, not in central business districts. How has this new pattern affected the urban transport projects of ADB? Are they still relevant? Bertrand, if you're still here, would you have time to answer this question? Okay, and it appears that Bertrand has left, but we will pose this question maybe to anybody on the panel would like to answer this question, maybe Mark. If not, we will ask Bertrand to answer this question in writing.
Well, certainly, I did want to just say that indeed ADB is learning a great deal from COVID, and but I think it will still take a couple more years for us to be able to fully address what has been learned from COVID. Getting back to the question of transportation patterns, the developing world is still rapidly expanding in its urban centers, so transportation will remain a major focus of ADB for the foreseeable future. Albeit telecommuting will have a greater role to play, but I don't think we're changing any dynamics just yet. I don't know if any of the other panelists would want to chime in.
Sure, Rustam, please. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you. I fully agree with Mark. You see, the challenges, especially in Asia, in our region, is that there is rapid urbanization, but the infrastructure is not really ready to accommodate such a big inflow of population coming from countrysides to urban areas. And therefore, we see increased demand. Transportation will always remain as a big sector where ADB will provide support. And there is very big demand in urban sector projects. This is urban roads, urban transportation, urban water supply. So that will continue growing in ADB portfolio. Thank you.
Sure. Well, thank you so much. I think that in the interest of time, as a moderator, would like to end this discussion. I mean, to end today's webinar. However, that's an excellent opportunity. All your questions that came through the registration forms actually will be a segue into our next webinar with the Asian Development Bank on opportunities in the in different sectors, and we'll hopefully cover more sectors, and we'll cover different sectors as well. So once again, I would like to express sincere thanks to all our speakers, to Ambassador Wong, to Mark O'Grady, to Michael Mia, to Apple, and all our speakers as well for being here with us. And of course, special thanks to our audience, to those who have remained despite the overtime. And we look forward to hosting you again. This certainly shows that there is a strong interest in ADB among the business community. Please let us know if there are other subjects or other topics that you would like to explore, and we'll certainly collaborate with ADB on that. So once again, thank you so much for the opportunity to be here with you today. We look forward to your questions, and we look forward to hosting everyone again. Thank you, and have a wonderful evening. Have a wonderful day.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.